Hey guys, how you doing? Fragrance Professor back at it again. Thanks for dropping by. In today's video, I want to share with you 5 fragrances that are among the strongest of my collection. And if I'm to be perfectly honest, I like strong fragrances. I like ones that project, that I can just have a scent bubble around me with. I tend to wear fragrances basically just for myself. I don't expect compliments. I don't go looking for them. I wear them, when I'm at home by myself. I wear them sometimes at night. So I just like to smell them on me. It just, kind of makes my mood a little bit better, or maybe just even changes my mood, puts me in a certain state of mind. And I like to smell them. And, I tend to go nose blind a little bit. And so, with some of these that I'm going to share with you today, I feel like I can smell them, periodically throughout the day. And sometimes I may even reapply, but, a few squirts in the morning will generally last me most all day, and I'll get that nice scent bubble. So I wanted to share with you a few. I have 5. Now, these are not the only ones in the collection that, I could have pulled out and shared with you today. I probably could have pulled out 5, 10 more easily. But these are among the strongest. So not the strongest, but among the strongest. So let's delve into it. The first one that I wanted to share is from the house of Afnan, which again is a Middle Eastern house, known primarily for clones, dupes, inspired buys, but they do have some original creations, I believe. But this is an inspired version of Interlude, basically Amouage Interlude. And I would say it does a very good job. Now, I have Interlude, and I wore that probably last week after not having worn it for several months, because it's just, we've been in the summer and so forth, and it's kind of too hot, to wear it. It's so powerful. But I wore it last week, the OG, and really, really enjoyed it. And so that's what kind of brought this to mind to pull off the shelf and share with you. So, that smells so good. If you don't have Interlude, this might be a good stand-in. It's the only, as far as I can remember offhand, it's the only Interlude dupe that I have. I know there's some other ones out there, but I have a big bottle, of the OG, and this is also probably at least, 80% full. So I think I think I'm good in that department. But this is a great one. It has that oregano, it has that smoke, that patchouli, those spices, the smoke. It's just a great scent. So this is, I haven't looked at price points recently, but this will probably run you somewhere in the 30s, maybe lower 40s. I don't know exactly where it is now. I've had this one for a couple of years, but it is a great one, and it does give you that projection. So, if you are thinking, hey, I'm going to use this pretty liberally, I would say go for it. Just be a little judicious if you go out, because it will potentially choke some people out, but if you're not careful, because it is strong. So, but keep that in mind. And if you're at home, hey, knock yourself out, I would say, with this, and you don't have to worry about the cost, because Interlude is still pretty expensive, even on discounters. The second one that I wanted to share with you is Lapidus for Homme. And this is one actually that gets talked about a pretty good bit in the community. This is a 1987 launch from the house of Ted Lapidus. I believe they're, they are, I see it right here. They're out of Paris. It's a French house. Now, this is an EDT, but it really, really hits above its weight class, I would say. It has just everything except the kitchen sink in terms of notes. Literally about 25 notes, and I'm not exaggerating. And I wrote down a few, but I don't want to read off 25 notes to you, but it's, here's some that I thought were more interesting. Pineapple, lavender, basil, honey, pine tree, tobacco, just to give you an idea. But this really is strong. And I remember when I got it, maybe a year ago, I wore it out, one Saturday running errands, and I'm sure I oversprayed. I probably did 6 or 7, because I like to smell them, and sometimes I don't know that I'm smelling so strongly that it's projecting off, especially if it's one that's fairly strong. I can't begin to imagine what people I encountered that day must have thought. But I think this is one that you definitely, if you're a fan of 80s fragrances and you don't have it, I think you probably owe it to yourself to pick it up. And another great thing about this one, besides it's being strong, is it's very cheap. I think this is, last time I checked, it was in the 20s, 20 US dollars. So Lapidus pour Homme, this is the original. There's a couple of other ones that get talked about, like Altamir. I don't have Altamir, but if you're new to Lapidus, maybe start with this one. The next one that I want to share with you is one called PS Fine Cologne. This is from the house of Paul Sebastian. And this is one that I always remember smelling as a kid growing up, and even as a teenager, growing up and, being in barbershops and just being out and about. This was definitely an 80s powerhouse, although it originally launched in 79, I believe. It just reeks of 80s in a good way. And, I'm an 80s kid myself. And so this just kind of speaks to me. But when I decided to pick this up earlier this year, I had a vague idea of what it smelled like because I never owned this growing up. But and I remember smelling it even, years ago and thinking, I don't like that. I was into the Dracars and the polo green and all this kind of thing. But Paul Sebastian at that time, this PS Fine Cologne just didn't do it for me. And I always remember thinking, I don't think I want to buy a bottle of that. But this really is good, and maybe it's because my nose has matured and, I'm a little, I guess my nose hopefully is a little more sophisticated now in terms of what I appreciate fragrance-wise. But this is also a fairly inexpensive fragrance, and it's one that has stood the test of time. 79 was the launch date. So, we're looking 46 years, I believe that is, if my math is right. But fairly inexpensive. Again, probably in the 30s, I would guess. I don't really remember. It won't break the bank, certainly. Depending on where you get it, the price may vary a little bit, but it smells really, really nice. And boy, it has some projection. I'll give you a few of the notes rather. Lavender, sage, nutmeg, rose, jasmine, musk, oak moss. Just a very, very nice note breakdown. But that doesn't really tell the whole story, obviously. So if you're not familiar with Paul Sebastian, I would recommend picking up a bottle, if you have an interest in these kind of fragrances, ones that are a little older, that have been around for 40 plus years and that still project. I don't feel this has been watered down at all. I feel that, this is one that has gone fairly untouched, I would say. Okay. So again, PS Fine Cologne, Paul Sebastian. It's a good one. It's a good one. All right, moving along. This is one from the house of Alexandria fragrances, okay? And this is called Hafez 1984. You can see the label there, Hafez 84. Hafez is the last name of the owner and creative director, I think, of Alexandria fragrances. So this was one that I picked up, I think probably among my first with the house. And you can see I've put a pretty good dent in that. And I would say that this is probably one of my favorites, just in terms of how it smells and also, the strength. Now, this is an extrait de parfum. Okay, so you look at that bottle and you think, that's not very much. I'm not going to pay good money for that. But a little does go a long way. This is just 1 ounce, but it's an extrait. Okay, it's a higher oil concentration. So I actually am wearing that as the scent of the day. In fact, I'm going to reapply a little bit. I'm going to go with 4. I really like this one. Tobacco, vanilla, patchouli, just a really, really great note bring. That I'm just reading the label, but rum is also listed in the database. Vanilla, spices. So it's very rich. It's very decadent, and especially again for fall, winter, maybe early spring. I think it is a real banger. I think you'll enjoy that a lot. So Alexandria fragrances, this is probably one that really turned me on to them. Again, like I said, I think it was among the first batch that I ever ordered from them. Last but not least, this is my niche entry today, Amouage Gold. Okay. Now, I really have come to love and enjoy Amouage fragrances. I have probably 5 or 6 of them at this point, always looking for the next one. You know, I like to pick them up. I know they're expensive, but I feel like, you know, a bottle will last me forever, basically. And I do try to take care of my fragrances and so forth, conserve them the best I can, because I want to get, you know, the years out of them of enjoyment. But this probably is my latest pickup of an Amouage, maybe 6 months ago. This is an 83 release, okay? A little bit different from the other Amouages. Guy Robert was the nose behind it, very prolific. He's done work for Hermes, he's done work for Dior, Gucci, just to name a few. Like I said, 1983. But this is a more floral, musky type scent. There is some animalics in there, like civet and things like that. But lily of the valley, rose, incense. There's myrrh in there. So it is a floral, musky animalic. Smells very regal, you know, just very opulent, very rich and decadent. But it does project. It is strong, like Amouage, you know, should be, basically. And so this is one that's a little bit different. Like I said, it's a little different from the other Amouage fragrances, the 4 or 5 that I already owned. Took a chance. I blind bought it just after reading about it and maybe listening to a review or two. Blind bought it. And I'm very glad that I did. I don't reach for it much. You can see I've made a little dent over the last few months. Don't reach for it a whole lot, but I do enjoy it. So that is, again, Gold Man from Amouage. Guys, that will do it. I appreciate you spending part of your day with me, and hopefully you enjoyed that. Leave me some feedback down below. Do you have any of these? Do you have others that you would maybe swap out, you know, among any of these 5, or ones that you own that, you know, you want to pass along to others watching the video and myself also? Love to hear from you down below. And if you haven't yet subscribed, feel free to do that as well. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.